Okay, well, we had no introduction, but that's good. I'm ready. Anyway, so one of the things just that happened to me in listening to this talk was there was obviously this thought of how do we prevent these random acts of violence, and it occurred to me that what is missing in the world today is random acts of kindness. If we could take just in your day and just find like opening a door for somebody or greeting somebody or trying to do things that are more in line with a good spiritual nature. And being spiritual is not being religious. There's no connection between the two. Religion is your personal belief, and I understand that, but being spiritual is being one with the world around you. And being one in touch with what is going on around you, and being present in the moment, being present in what you're doing, and looking at the people around you, and trying to be aware of what they're doing, and trying to be, and doing a random act of kindness. And if you can do a random act of kindness, then if there was more random acts of kindness, my belief is there would be less random acts of violence. So do we have a caller, I guess? Maybe, yes. Okay. So we're, that person is, I didn't see, it's, I think we got Stephanie. Stephanie, are you on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. How are you doing tonight?
Okay.
What can I do for you?
I'm looking forward to talking to Dr. Reiner.
Well, this is.
Oh, this is?
Yep.
Oh. We're talking about random acts of kindness. And a couple of years ago, I was at Home Depot, and I saw this serviceman. I always, say thank you for your service. He was about 83 years old, and I said, thank you so much for your service. And he hugged me, and he says, you know what? Nobody has ever gone out of their way to say that to me. And it brought tears to my eyes. I will always remember it.
Well, I've had a hard time hearing because of this. Hold on a second. I'm going to turn my mic off and see if that doesn't help. Technical difficulties, I guess. So, okay. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I lost a lot of what you were saying.
Shall I repeat it? I see your mouth moving.
What was that?
She's asking if she can repeat it.
Huh?
She's asking if she can repeat it.
Yeah. Would you mind repeating what you were saying?
Absolutely. I was at Home Depot a couple of years ago, and there was this little guy. I always thank people for their service. And he was in his 80s, and I thanked him for his service. And he gave me this great big hug, and he says, you know what? Never has anybody gone out of their way to do that for me. And it brought tears to my eyes, and it still does. I always thank service people for that. I have another question that you might be able to answer.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, we're having I'm having a large amount of echo and background on here on feedback, so I'm going to have someone in the background take your question and then relay it to me in a different way, because it's just a lot of feedback, and we're going to have to solve that problem. I hear myself and I hear you, so I'm going to turn down the mic and have somebody else.
Mouth moving now.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
I love you, Dr. Reiner. You saved Margie.
Oh, thank you for the calling in. I'm sorry we're having so much difficulty.
That's okay.
So sorry we're having, but if you have a question, I mean, if there's something that we can do to try and solve it, talking to the producer, and then he'll try and get me the question. I like the interchange, but until we solve the feedback issue, we'll keep working on that. Anyway. So I did not hear what Stephanie had to say completely, but I do appreciate those comments if they were whatever they were, kindness, I'm sure. So that was my point of the whole thing, which is I think the world needs more. And it's up to, I mean, one of the things that I see happening, and it's kind of cool, when I go, I hear about this all the time in Houston, where they'll be in the Chick-fil-A line and they'll be going through the line, and so what these people will do is they'll pay for their bill and they'll pay for the person behind them. And then the person gets up to the counter and they say, well, the person ahead of you paid for your bill. And so that person will then pay for the person behind them. And you keep going down the line. I mean, it's kind of like that old idea about paying things forward, about doing something nice for somebody in advance, not expecting anything in return. I mean, that's the key. Listen, nobody's perfect in this world. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And one of the things that happened that I read about a long time ago, Stephen Covey had a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one part of that book I remember was a pause between the stimulus and the response. So if I take a neural hammer and I hit your knee, it's an instantaneous knee jerk, and that's basically a reflex. So if someone comes up and pushes your button and immediately you fly off the handle, okay, that's not an effective response. It doesn't help your situation at all. However, if you process that information and take time to respond in an appropriate non-personal manner, then you become very effective with that particular individual, and you become effective with that. And it's never wrong in my book to be able to say to someone, I don't know what that response is, but let me think about it. And it totally diffuses the whole situation. And it diffuses people that are in a bad mood or things of that nature. So, and that's how you get into this escalation. You know, I'm yelling at you, you're yelling at me, I'm going to yell louder, and then, did anybody solve anything? No, nobody solved the thing. So there's a lot of lessons in there, a lot of lessons in how do we deal with changing our paradigm of what people are going through. He tells a very interesting story about how he was on a bus, and while he was on the bus, there was a gentleman, but his kids were just running rampant on the bus, just raising all kinds of Cain. And finally he had enough, and he went up to this gentleman and he said, sir, can you please manage your children? And the guy was in a daze, and he woke up and he said, oh yeah, I'll take care of that right now. I'm so sorry. We were just in the hospital and my wife just passed away. And so that was just understanding the paradigm of what this person was going through, asking, rather than saying, can you just take care of your kids, asking, can I help you with something? Is there something going on? Do you need something? Can I give you something? Maybe I can't give you money, but maybe I can give you time, I can give you expertise, or maybe it's just nothing at all except a pat on the back or a shoulder to lean on. Those are the kinds of things that can make this society a better place to live. And if you do it on your level, and somebody else does it on their level, it's very catching. It's just a very catching thing to be randomly kind to other people. And so with that, I will leave it there, and we'll maybe some will spark a conversation. And it's always good for your soul. I mean, it's always good for you to be at the peace with the world around you, and not fight the demons of your past. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Give yourself permission to. I've always done that. I've always given myself. I mean, nobody's perfect. If I didn't do it right today, it's okay. I'm going to try again tomorrow, and I'm going to keep doing better if I can. And if I can't, then it's because maybe I'm physically limited or I have something else. But I'm not going to get down on myself. But I'm going to try to do the right thing when no one's looking. And that isn't always possible. I can't say I do it 100% of the time. That ego gets in the way, that selfishness, and we all have it. We all can be selfish and self-centered, and that's unfortunate. And there are, you know, I have this thing I talk about, which is called the 90-10, or basically 80-10-10 rule, where society is a bell curve, and 80% of the people in the middle are really pretty good people, and there's 10% that are just they're godlike, right? I mean, they don't do anything wrong. And there's 10% that are absolutely evil. And they're criminal, and they want to hurt everybody. And that's unfortunate. Those people have been dealt some pretty bad blows. But remember, that criminal, that murderer, that bad person was actually a baby at one point who was innocent and born into this world. And it's society and whatever situation that they were in could have and possibly did mold those neurons and mold that body and mold that mind into something that was less than perfect. And that's unfortunate, but that does find a way to give compassion to those people. And, you know, resentment is something that we shouldn't live with either. And I believe that people, you know, expectations are horrible to place on people because you're just going to place yourself in a horrible situation. So, and tonight I kind of wanted to talk about more screening tests, and one of those screening tests is a mammogram, and we've talked about it numerous times before, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is that a mammogram is a lot of people are afraid of them, and they are painful. I mean, I know I've never had a mammogram, so I can't really state that I understand the pain that women go through. And my wife jokes around and says it was obviously created by a sadistic man, but I don't know that that's true. But the reason the breast tissue is squeezed to such a low flat is because it allows us to use less X-ray to penetrate the tissues. And that's the whole point about mammograms being safe with regards to the radiation dose that is given. You probably get more radiation from being out in the sun than you do from getting a mammogram. So I can dispel that rumor. There was a nice, interesting chart that I saw that talked about the risk of being alive at age 65 versus having a mammogram. And it's a very low number. So it's very safe to have a mammogram. Yes, it is also very uncomfortable to have that. But mammograms can detect cancer years ahead of when they become palpable. And the way we do that is we look for certain changes in the breast tissue that are hallmarks of cancer development. One of those are microcalcifications, little spicules of calcium being deposited. The reason is because the cancer cells are growing at an extremely rapid rate, and they outgrow their blood supply. And in doing so, they basically form calcium when cells die. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back and talk a little bit more about breast cancer.